It was Passover time in the week of the Lord's Passion. Verse 7, then came the day of unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. That word had to be one of Luke's favorite and urgent words in Greek, dei. It was necessary. It had to be sacrificed. The word lamb isn't actually in the Greek text. It just says the Passover, the Pascha, the animal, the one that needs to be sacrificed, needed to be. It had to happen. The centerpiece of the celebration of Passover was the sacrifice of this lamb, because that's what happened in Egypt. They were slaves, and it was through a revelation that God gave them that if those Hebrew slaves would take a lamb, take it in their house, an unblemished lamb, shed its blood, and put that blood over the doorposts of their home, that when the destroyer came through, that they would be protected just because of the blood of that lamb. Not by their own righteousness, but the unblemished lamb's blood. God would look on it as if it had been their own. And so Luke says at verse 7, it was time and the lamb had to be sacrificed. Passover was at hand. But there's a much deeper level here to say it had to be, because if human sin were to be ultimately forgiven and not temporarily covered, there was only one way. It had to be that there would be a sinless human who would die for all of humanity. Jesus had to be sacrificed. And he, as John the Baptizer said at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, was the Lamb who came to take away the sins of the world. It's why when Jesus says, I'm eager to have this Passover with you, it's staggering, because he knew what it meant. He was the Lamb. I have a good friend, Eddie, who was Jewish, grew up Jewish, and became a Jesus lover. On a Thursday night, his father was in town. They celebrated the Passover. On a Friday morning, he was at our New Canaan Society Men's Fellowship. And I happened to be speaking that morning on that Good Friday, and I spoke about the Exodus and their deliverance from slavery and the blood of the Lamb over the doorpost, and how Jesus is the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. And afterwards, my friend came to me and he said, are you saying that Jesus is the Passover lamb? I said, oh yes, he is. Sometime a few weeks later, Eddie came to saving faith in Jesus. He's a lover of Jesus, because the whole thing centers on this. It had to be. As surely as you can't have the Passover feast itself in the Jewish tradition without the lamb, there's no salvation but for the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. Jesus said, this is my body. This is my blood. And what he was saying is, I am the real Passover lamb. That's the gospel.